Kyrie Irving is finally eligible to play home games for the Brooklyn Nets once again, and this has the NBA world losing their minds. And I gotta be honest, I'm pretty happy about this too. And it's not because I like the Nets. It's certainly not because I like the Nets. It's not even because I like Kyrie Irving. I think he's kind of a punk and a bit of an oddball. But as a fan of basketball, it's just nice to see one of the 10 best scorers of all time back on the court, because Kyrie Irving is an absolute monster. He is a thrill to watch, and it's good to have another superstar back in the NBA playing basketball. It's good for the league, it's good for entertainment, and it's good for me because this time when the Brooklyn Nets lose in the playoffs, I don't have to listen to a bunch of excuses about how Kyrie Irving wasn't playing. So, speaking of the Brooklyn Nets losing in the playoffs, a lot of people think that this this decisions, this allowance for Kyrie, has now made the Nets, once again, the favorites in the NBA. And I'm just going to be straight up with you all, I don't think they are. I hesitate to call this team a contender, even with Kyrie, and I definitely do not see them as the favorites to win the title. Let me explain why. The Brooklyn Nets stats for the season right now are the 11th offensive rating and the 22nd defensive rating. And first of all, props to Brooklyn for holding on to a 22nd defensive rating. There is no reason this team should not be a bottom 5 defense, and even though 22nd is still pretty bad, that's really impressive considering their roster. They do not have a lot of good defensive players on this team. Nevertheless, the offense is certainly going to go up. It's absolutely going to be a top 5 offense in the league when you have two of the best scorers of all time in Kyrie and KD, and you have a whole bunch of shooting around them. Seth Curry, Patty Mills, mostly those two guys, actually, because Joe Harris is hurt. There aren't actually as many shooters on this team as people pretend there are. Those guys are going to get the easiest open looks of their entire career. Same thing for LaMarcus Aldridge in the mid-range, honestly. So, this is going to be a great offense. This is going to be an incredibly difficult offensive team to stop, but they're also going to give up 130 points a game. See, this is my issue with the Brooklyn Nets. It has been my issue with the Brooklyn Nets for the last 2 seasons, and it has only gotten worse because this year, Ben Simmons is not going to play. He has a herniated disc in his back. He is not expected to return for the playoffs. He should be out. Dunzo. And you all know my issues with Ben Simmons. The man has a whole host of problems. But at the end of the day, he's a phenomenal defensive player, and I really do think Ben Simmons alone would make this team a potential title favorite, simply because having the ability to play really, really good defense on one opposing star player can swing a series. It really can. Having Ben Simmons' defensive impact out there could make a huge difference for Brooklyn, and instead, they're going to have one of the worst defenses in the league, as Kyrie Irving is not a good defender. He's a bad defender. He's going to make their already poor defense even worse. And there's a reason you just don't see teams win the championship on offense alone. We have actually seen, the term defense wins championships is thrown around a lot there, and I think it's overblown in many ways. However, it is a true fact that more teams have won a championship with a really bad offense and a really good defense than they have with a really good offense and a putrid defense. It's just NBA history. It doesn't happen. So when you tell me this team is supposed to be the title favorite, I just have to ask, how? How are they going to beat the Bucks with Giannis? How are they going to beat the Sixers with Joel Embiid? How are they going to beat a team like if they face the Warriors in the finals with Steph Curry? I just don't know how they're going to play good enough defense to win these series, because you have to have a perfect game every single night from both Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Not to mention their shooters have to be on point, and Seth Curry can be pretty inconsistent at times. Then you look at the rest of the team, and it's not that tough. As good as their defense is, Bruce Brown is not a good offensive player. Goran Dragic has not been good this season. Andre Drummond is extremely limited. He can only do things around the rim. Nick Claxton, same thing. DeAndre Bembry is a decent player, but he doesn't take many shots whatsoever, and I don't think he's going to see some big big uptick in volume. And then you've got other guys, Cam Thomas, James Johnson, Blake Griffin has played like garbage this year. This team is not deep. They don't have really much scoring at all coming off the bench. I just don't see how they can win a championship with this lineup. And that's not true. I do see how they could win one. I see how they could win multiple series with this lineup. I think that Kyrie and Kevin Durant alone, with a few good shooters, is enough to offense your way through several rounds of the playoffs. Straight up, I think it is. I think they're no longer a first-round exit, depending on their seeding, of course. I think there's a very good chance they win the first round. They could even make it as far, in my mind, as the Eastern Conference Finals. But at the end of the day, if you have 2 bad games from one of Kyrie and Kevin Durant, you're going to lose those games, and then the other team just needs to be really good on offense in those other 2 games to win a 4-game series. That's all it takes. There is no room for error whatsoever with this team, because they're going to give up, once again, 100 points a game. Not 100 points, 130 points a game. Sometimes 140. So if they are not simultaneously scoring 140 points a game, they are not going to be winning. And when you face a lot of great defensive teams, like specifically if this team somehow made the finals, I'm pretty convinced at this point that the Suns are making the finals again. We just got announced that Chris Paul's coming back. I'm feeling good about the Suns. If this team somehow made the finals against the Suns, I could legitimately see it being a 5-game series, if not a sweep, because the Suns don't make mistakes. They are a team who plays perfect team basketball. They don't screw up their defensive assignments. They don't make dumb decisions on offense. And that's what you need against Brooklyn. Brooklyn can take advantage of mistakes better than anyone else in the league because of their incredible offense. But at the end of the day, if you just play really solid, really smart basketball against them, even the best offense in the world can be held within somewhat human standards. Meanwhile, they're going to get absolutely lit up on the other end. So I do not believe that the Brooklyn Nets are legitimate title contenders. That's not true. I'm not going to say they're not legitimate title contenders. I will give them just enough of a chance to call them that. But I absolutely do not believe this team is making it out the East. I do not think they should be considered the title favorites. And maybe I'll get proven wrong. Maybe I'll regret this video in a few months from now when they're absolutely cooking the Bucks or the Sixers in the East. But I really can't see this team winning a championship, given their lack of defense, given their lack of depth, and also given the fact that Steve Nash has not exactly shown himself to be the world's greatest coach, and they've still got injury woes. Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant are both fragile players who tend to get hurt. I can really, I can make up quite a few excuses of this team, more than I can for most other teams. So the Brooklyn Nets are not my pick to win the NBA championship.